Okay, please work. Oh, sorry, wrong account. Oh, yes. Yes, we're working. Haha, I think. Fourth time's a charm. There we go. Okay,
It's that
well,
easy. That easy.
I mean, it's 20-ish minutes later. Who cares? No time
Yeah.
like the present. Oh, dearie me. Well, hello,
Yeah.
Helen, for the second
Hi,
time,
Daniel.
apart from a side video call. Oh, dear. So, I would say how you've been, but to be honest, I'd say pulling your hair out over technical issues
Well,
may be
yeah,
an idea.
it's just me being really stupid. So I'm really sorry, but I've learned something now. So
Yeah.
and
Hey, you know how to do it in the future now.
I do. And
Excellent.
also, I think that family history is a lot more easy than going live on Instagram. So
Probably. Hopefully everyone can hear me now. I'm not sure if it was a case of because I'm using my old phone, so I've no idea if it was just a case of my other phone's just being a pain. So here's hoping. Uh, okay, if I can type, that should hopefully have gone up. Okay, so I figured fourth odd time's a charm. Yeah, you're not right, PJ. You're not wrong. Oh dear. Anyway, okay, we're getting a good view in. So anyway, I figured it might, for those who may not know who you are, although I'd be amazed if not many people did, because I mean you're quite a figurehead in the publications in industry, especially with family history. So I figured I might as well let you introduce yourself.
yeah, sure. So I'm editor of Family Tree. I'll just grab a copy of it underneath my desk. So we're this lovely magazine. We've been going for 35 or 36 years, so a long time. And then the business started off on a kitchen table. Like I didn't start it, I was still at school when it started, but the guy who started it, so it was a real kitchen table enthusiast magazine, how it started out. He was an ambulance driver, so it's really random, isn't it? But anyway, all these years later, it's still going strong.
Yeah,
And we have readers all over the world, and we do a digital
including
issue.
me. I'm one of them.
And hey, thank you. Yeah.
Right. So obviously, like it's a now obviously the questions will probably be the same, and they have been. But kind of how did you get into genealogy starting out?
So I got into it because I loved history, and then and I always used to ask the old people in my family, so really distant relations, so like my granny's, you know, all these side branches, all these old great aunts who didn't have any kids. I'd talk to them a lot, um, and ask them questions. So I just liked the olden days, and then family history came out of loving history, and I suddenly realized how much more interesting history is once you put real individual people and your own ancestors, because it stops it just being, you know, you're not just learning about the First World War, you're learning about your great great grandpa's time in the First World War. You've got that individual story. And then also with family history, you have the first hand records, don't you? You're not reading a book that someone else has written about it. You are looking at the documents from the 1700s or whatever. So there's loads of different reasons. I think lots of things came together to make me enjoy family history. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the fact that you said so, like that you were liked history as well. That was kind of when I started out a few years ago. That just kind of boosted my love for it even more because I liked history as a subject anyway. So
Yeah.
it just kind of went hand in hand with each other.
It does, and it makes all of the events from history much more exciting because you're not just reading dates. Like when an act of parliament happens, that has a drastic impact on our ancestors' lives, like whether the convicts are going to get sent to America or Australia, whether they have to be buried in wool, whether they're allowed to wear tartan in Scotland. All these acts of parliament have drastic impacts on. So it's not just a boring old act of parliament. It's something which is either people love or hate about their lives. Then, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It definitely, and it definitely does help tell the story if a bit more if you kind of like, if you, now it's just my opinion, so like if you like history and you kind of do it as well as family history, it's a good kind of, it's kind of like a good bread and butter thing to have, because it just kind of, whatever you learn in history may cross over in what you find in your own family's history.
Yeah.
And so when you were researching, is there kind of like one that you found one that's more helpful than the other, or
Like what, one record set or one
anything?
approach?
Like it could be a record set or an individual kind of record.
Okay. Um, well, no, I mean, obviously there's the really, for English and Welsh and Scottish, then obviously the censuses are just really, really useful. And so I've been researching my family history like solidly for about 20 years, but I'm still learning more. The census still shows up new things, because maybe like the first time, you know, when you first research a branch, just I was always so keen to get back that maybe I'd skip a few censuses because I'd just be like racing back in time, trying to get back far. And also I like to trace all of the branches of my family tree. So I'd be doing it much more sketchy. And then now I keep going back and building in, trying to get all of the kind of bits of the puzzle as I go back. So that's kind of, it's kind of a boring record, not boring, but it's such a old hat record, but it's just so useful. We'll be really stuck without it. And so I like that. Yeah, as an approach, I'm learning to get better at keeping better notes and not thinking I'll trust everything to memory, because that never works. And
No, it doesn't.
yeah,
I've learned that. It
yeah.
does not. So now, obviously, the next question I was going to ask is kind of probably fairly easy to answer. What projects or ventures are you currently pursuing? Well, I mean, it's kind of obvious which one you're kind of pursuing at the moment, I think.
Why? What do you think? What do you think I'm pursuing at the moment then?
Oh, maybe editing Family Tree magazine? I'd guess.
Oh well, I guess. But in my own family history, then I'm trying to find out. It's I think she's my 7 times great granny. I'm trying to find out where is actually she's born, and I know. Well, I'm pretty sure she was born in this little or big parish in Scotland called Balquhidder, and so I'm trying to find exactly which farm she was born in, and then and I'm quite excited about her because potentially she comes from a Jacobite family, so and so she would be born just after the Battle of Culloden. So again, it's like that where the history joins up to the family history. But I'm still in like the daydream land of maybe I'm related to a Jacobite, maybe I'm not. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
So is there now, like you said, you have been doing it for about 20 years. So is there any kind of thing that you've learned now that, so like that you kind of went like, oh, I really wish I knew that when I started out, because that would have helped me so much.
Yeah, it is. What I used to do is, so I would keep some notes, and I would always build up a family tree, and I would be really careful about going back to the original record. And I would make sure I had a few bits of evidence for every fact, or you know, it was not, sometimes I couldn't find a few bits of evidence, but if I could. So I was quite methodical that way. But what I was really bad at is writing down my thought processes. So you know when you found your documents, it all makes sense, you add it to your tree, but what I would fail to do, I would fail to go, I think X, Y, and Z because blah, blah, blah. So I think it's so important to write down why you've come to your conclusions, because that is the nub of the thing. Otherwise, you've just got a pile of documents and a tree. Whereas really, 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 you need all three things. You need a tree, you need your pile of documents, like your original proof, and you need to say, I think this because of that. You have got to write down that bit.
Yeah,
And I've
yeah,
been really
kind
bad
of.
at that. So I wish I'd done that right from the start.
Yeah, no, like the way you kind of put it, it is kind of like kind of you do this thing in English class for me called point quote explain. So you kind of make your point, you quote, and then you explain your quote or why you kind of picked it. And so like
Yeah.
the explain section would kind of be so like why I so like chose this, or so like why I think this is part of it.
Yeah. So are you good at doing that then, Daniel? Are you good at writing down why you think things in your
Do
genealogy?
you want an honest answer or not so honest
Yeah, honest, not so fun. Yes.
honestly, no, not really.
Yeah.
It's just a case of excitement kind of takes over a little, and then you kind of go, oh, and then you saw like a little dog like chasing its own tail in excitement, kind of go like, oh, I'm going somewhere, and I don't really
Yeah.
want to stop to, because I don't kind of like stop and go like, right, I need to write down where I found this and why I thought this in the first place, because the thought may come
Yeah.
to me then, but I can't remember for the life of me why later on. So
Yeah. So I think we've just got to do it, because we will just kick ourselves later if we don't do it.
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So obviously now you kind of would have gotten to know this as you went on, but kind of what would be your kind of favorite aspect of genealogy? So like seeing like records, seeing photos, or knowing like stories of your ancestors and before.
That should be a really easy question, but it's a really hard question, because how can you choose? Because that's kind of that's the beauty of it, isn't it? That you you know, if you have family photos, you treasure them. If you have stories which are handed down, you treasure them. If you manage to find out enough evidence and stuff, just from from archive records, you can start building up a story being handed down. You can character at their life, what decisions they made about their lives. So those stories and things are all really important. But then just because I love history, then the sheer looking at the records and thinking, why records were kept, and trying to decipher the handwriting, just the sheer kind of puzzle factor is fun, trying to decipher the handwriting. And then like I get really all emotional about the 1939 register. So because it's taken at the start of the Second World War to to do conscription and to make sure people had ID cards, but also to make sure people had enough rations. So I just love the fact that often we have a really cynical view of our governments, but then back in 1939, the start of the war, if you read I've waded through Hansard and read all the transcripts of the MPs debating about the 1939 register and how they were going to organise it. And they were so compassionate and so definite that they wanted to make sure enough people had enough rations, because in the First World War they hadn't prepared enough, and they were like, we cannot let this happen again. So I find that really moving, because that's kind of restores your faith in politicians. Not, I wouldn't say necessarily now, but you know that people can be compassionate in power, which is kind of not normally how we view them. Yeah, that's a very waffly answer, isn't it?
No, you're definitely right there in all you say, I think. So now again, if you want to share this, it's perfectly okay if you don't want to. What would be an interesting story or event that you've discovered about your ancestors or found during your ancestors' lives?
Well, I found many interesting stories. Um, so I found examples of one of my great grandpas, and he fought in the First World War, and he was a very modest, tidy man. Like, he would polish his car every time it rained on it. He was very fastidious and neat, and you might say like a control freak, but what, not in a bad way, just a very
Oh,
tidy man. Anyway, in the First World War, then there's evidence in the London Gazette of him and his bullets. He got bullet holes in his clothing. He used to crawl out into no man's land and mend the wiring. And so, but he never mentioned this, and that's probably brave, isn't it, for this. He was kind of quite a small, neat, skinny, tidy man, and just not like a big macho guy at all, but obviously somebody who's really, really brave. And I was really quite moved when I found that in the records, because he'd never mentioned it, he'd never told anyone. He just, and by the time I read it, he was long dead, and so he was kind of like a real unsung hero. Um, so that was very moving to, realize what he'd done, and that he was so modest he never mentioned it. Um, and then I found another great granny. She like shaved some years off her age because she wanted to marry this much younger guy. um, and then I've got this really cool story. So it'll be my yeah my another different great granny. So after the First World War, then her boyfriend went to Brazil from Scotland. He went to Brazil to try and get work after the First World War, and she was so in love with him that she left Scotland with her violin case, and she went over to Rio de Janeiro, and my granny was born out there. And so obviously this is like a really adventurous thing to do in 1920, 1921. And but for the rest of her life, then she always would play like Scottish airs on a violin. So kind of her heart stayed in Scotland, but she just still had to leave and run across the world after this man. So it's kind of like, feels like a modern story. Like you think of our ancestors being really sensible, but they're just as human and reckless or whatever as we are. So I like that.
yeah. Like that is, yeah, it's kind of like the classic story that you kind of see in like a TV show. Just when you kind of said
Yeah.
that, I immediately thought the finale of Friends.
Yeah.
It's funny,
Yeah.
but it's the first thing that came into my mind when you mentioned that. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and an old timey version.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Now, because I genuinely some these questions that get popped up and I will miss them. So Time Will Tell podcast asks, what would be the best site or sites to visit for someone in the US to find info? Ancestry can be quite expensive. Is there a cheaper way around?
So cheaper way around, like, or family search is obviously really good, because you can get a lot of information completely for free on family search, and it covers all different countries around the world. So if you're in the US and you're tracing your roots back to Britain, you'll find lots of British information on there. So if they mean they're in the US but they're tracing British roots, then free BMD would be good, and free reg. So family search, I'd say, is good because it's got records you can search, and you can build your tree on there. You can build your tree free on Ancestry, but it's obviously you're trying to build out the records. What else? And then I guess there's some free newspaper collections, so that's obviously worth trying to track down. So things like Trove, and that's for Australian ones. So I'm not sure where they want to find ancestors, but sometimes because of the British Empire, sometimes you can find mentions in, say, Australian newspapers of things happening back in the UK. So it's an outside chance, but it could be worth a go. What else would be good? I can't think of other things. If they want to specify a bit more in their question, then I'll try and wrap my brain for something a bit more specific. But I'd say I'd start with family search, free BMD, and free reg, and free sen if they're in the US but looking to trace roots back in England and Wales and a bit of Scotland. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, so obviously my work, which I'm trying to, do obviously I'm trying to, as I think PJ's in here somewhere. So anyway, obviously the hidden branch, we're trying to, get the subject of genealogy to not kind of be not so much something for older people to do, but kind of it's because I think a lot of the mentality for younger people is kind of it's an old person thing. It's not a young person's thing. Nobody does it. But it's a case of when I was starting out on Twitter, I felt that kind of there isn't really many places to go to try and talk to people my own age that are into this sort of thing. So, would you say yourself that there's kind of not that many organizations slash websites slash corners of the internet, whatever way you want to use it, that sort of like accommodate this demand, or demand that may become bigger and bigger as the years go on?
So, well, when I started doing family history, then the internet was still quite new, and so we all thought then that the internet would mean that family history got enjoyed by many more younger people. But as it's turned out, I think maybe the age group has shifted down a little bit, because it means you can research. Even so, I work full time. You can still do family history research even if you're busy at work. You don't have to wait till you're retired now, but there still seems to be something, whether it's almost like not a coming of age thing, but I think once your grandparents die and then your parents die, it gets people, there's the classic thing where they go, I wish I'd asked them more. I wish I'd talked to them more. And so many people say that. And so you're lucky, you're so lucky that you've got into it when you're young, partly because you can have more years to enjoy it in your life, but partly there's hopefully more people around you in your family who you can ask questions about. That there seems, for most people, it seems like a natural thing that they just wait till later. Some people get like the penny drops in their head. It's a cool thing to do when they have a baby, because they go, oh, I think I want my baby to know its roots and stuff like that. I really think it is part of it is just a human part of us. Most of us are on a kind of journey, and most people don't seem to really get into it till they're in their 40s, yeah,
Yeah.
or later. And so DNA, you'd think DNA, oh, that was then, and that kind of really kicked off a couple of years ago, and got much more mainstream. You think, well, this could be really good. It encouraged more people to get into genealogy, but it's encouraged millions of people to take a test, and it has got some more people into genealogy, but there's a lot of trees on there taken by people who've taken a lot of DNA test results on there, who've done the DNA test, but who haven't built out their trees and aren't into it that much. So I'd say that both the internet is like a first wave, DNA is a second wave. They've been totally taken to heart and enjoyed by existing genealogists. It's brought the age group down a little bit, but not massive. So yes, there is a massive gap for younger people. So how to get younger people into genealogy? I don't know. You'd be better qualified to say than me. But I think what you're doing, things like this, like making use of technology where people are at, that's much more likely to, you're making it easy for people to find genealogy, like your friends can find you and see what you're doing. So what you're doing is a great thing. It's really good. Yeah. So I say keep up the good work and try and encourage more of them to do it with you. Yeah.
Bit by bit. I mean, I'd say the main issue that we're having now is kind of trying to, get our name out there and trying to work out where the best place to kind of, not so much advertise, but kind of just to like mention us. PJ,
Yeah.
we still don't know how to get kids into genealogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll say use your own experiences. I'm answering that one straight off.
Do you what I've done with my kids, and this I've done it since they're adult now, but when they were little, so when they were 4 or 5, I did their first genealogy interview with them, and I made them fill out questionnaires. There's this really cute book for like little tiny kids, primary school kids, and then I've done that with them since, and so now we have this record, and then get them to do things which, this is for little kids, not for teenagers, maybe for teenagers as well, but definitely for little kids, get them to think about their own lives, and then that's a good starting point, because then they start branching out from other people's lives. They're getting into the practice of documenting their own lives and facts about their lives, facts about the people in their lives, and that's what family history is, but on a really like micro scale for a primary school kid. And then the other thing is just as a mum, then I will continuously say stories, and if ever we travel anywhere, I go, oh, we've got an ancestor who came from there, and so I'll always try and drag it into the conversation the whole time. And but it does mean that even though my daughters aren't into family history, they do know quite a lot of stories because I just keep on at
You
any
just keep
excuse.
implanting, so
Yeah,
I just
if I
kind of
know anything
slipping it
up,
in, and just kind of like, oh, by the way, and then you just
yeah,
sort of lay it.
yeah, like drip feed. Yeah, but
Well,
then
that's probably the way to do it.
one day they will be interested and they'll have such a good start because they'll know all these stories already.
Yeah, and they'll probably go, "Ah, but Mum already has it done. Like, we don't need to
Yeah,
do it."
yeah,
They may go that. They may turn around and say that to you, and
yeah.
so obviously, it's it's another one of my favorite questions that I like to ask. But it'll have a different meaning for everyone. But what, in your perspective or opinion, what does genealogy mean to you?
Well, it's my life. So I think it's so to put my job to one side. I think it's so important because I think for me really. So when I grew up, you always feel like you're trying hard to do well in your life, and I would always make loads of mistakes, and I'd feel really bad about myself because of all the mistakes I'd made and stuff. And then when I started doing family history, and I learned about all my ancestors' lives, and I learned about the twists and turns in their lives, and you see them having lucky breaks, you see them falling on hard times, and it just makes you realise that life is this big flowing thing, and some things are within our control, some things aren't. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. It's always been like that. Our ancestors have been like that. So stop beating yourself up. Just keep on trying, keep on going. And so I find it really comforting to see and know about all these people who came before me. And yeah, I really like knowing that you're just a little human, and there's from a long line of little humans all just kind of doing their best with a few mistakes along the way. So that means that's what it means. That's what I love about it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can definitely relate. Um, because it was kind of, I can relate to that definitely, because like my my dad, I was saying in my interview with Shannon McGaffin, Oracle Genealogy, who I think is watching now. I was kind of saying that my father's side of the family, like, as the further you up and up and up, they're all kind of, it's either ag lads or farmers. Like, for some people it might not be that interesting, but kind of when it's kind of like an onion, because like when you peel away, so like the details, and then you get to know the actual person, it kind of makes you think, okay, they're not just a farmer who had a boring bog standard life or something, because like it kind of just adds that depth.
Hmm.
And like my mother's side, for like, again, it's farmers as well, but I've come across a plumber, I know, a plumber, a draper, and a workhouse master. But I don't know if the workhouse master was actually a workhouse master, because
Hmm.
he was heavily involved in the 1916 Rising and the War of Independence. And I can remember finding like newspapers, uh, so like on Find My Past or something, and it was just kind of detailing my great grandfather, who was supposedly the workhouse master, and just kind of, because his name was Pax, and they were both Patrick. Him and his father, they were both Pax. The son was Pax, the father was Patsy. So it just kind of, I found the newspaper kind of saying, uh, because of Pax's involvement, uh, Patsy had an awful lot of people coming around his house, and just kind of like searching the house and doing something. And I think he sort of like said something, oh, you just take the key or something to the house, and it was just so they were coming in so often. I don't think it was like that exact words, but it was along the gist of, so like, he was getting a load of people coming in, that he just kind of like, right, I'll just leave the door open or something, because he had a lot of people coming around, like not just like for a chat or anything. It was just like they were coming into search to see any kind of like suspicion or any, you know, activity that shouldn't be happening or something. But I haven't uncovered anything bad yet, and I hope I don't. But I mean, I may do. I don't know. But now that I'm off for Christmas, I now have time to do it.
Yeah, I know that'd be good. Yeah, that'd be very good. Are you on
um,
lockdown in Ireland? What's the thing there?
I think now, again, I haven't checked news at all today. I didn't.
Yeah,
But I think we're heading back into lockdown. I think. Don't quote me on
yeah,
that. I think the
yeah,
27th.
yeah,
So I think it's just a case because cases are rising up here in Ireland, and it's just who knows. But
I'm just
fingers.
thinking if you are, you've got more time to do your family history if you're trapped at home anyway.
Yeah,
So
it's funny because I think at the start, and anyone that's watching can probably relate to this, that when you when lockdowns like first came in, you were kind of thinking, great, I'm going to have days and days and days and hours and hours and hours of family history to do. And then when as time went on, you kind of were excited, and then as more and more went on, and then you kind of thought like, I'm in no mood to do any family history today. And it's just a case of it's because of the pandemic, it doesn't seem any bit normal because
yeah,
you just kind of be going out meeting friends, going out to work, going doing things, and then you just like stuck at home and kind of go like, what do I have to do today? Okay, family history. No energy for that, and that was
yeah,
the same, and that was the thing with myself because there were times when it was just kind of like, because I really think so. Like with the pandemic happening, there have been a lot of people kind of saying, "Oh, I really feel like I should be doing research now, but I'm in no mood to do so." And it's a case of you shouldn't beat yourself up because I mean we're not in a normal life at the
yeah,
moment. It's
yeah,
anything but, I think, at the moment.
yeah,
And it's a case of don't worry, everyone's out of kilter and will be for a while by the looks of it.
yeah,
So don't
yeah.
beat yourself up if you kind of feel, right, I need to be doing family history, but you don't need to. Like, you have plenty of time
Yeah,
to do it.
it to be fun.
It would be fun, yeah.
Yeah.
A question came in here, and if this works, I will be so pleased. Okay, judging by the description it's giving here. Can you see that?
Yes.
Good.
What would cause a family to put a family member as male instead of female on the census? So, nothing on. I wouldn't think it would be any forward thinking of people, not wanting to choose their birth assigned gender. I don't think it would be any forward thing. I literally think it would be like a bureaucratic tick in the wrong box. And because if I don't know which census, but let's say they're talking about most of the censuses for England and Wales, like not for the censuses for Ireland, but for England and Wales, they're the copies, aren't they? So the enumerator's taken in everyone's forms, gone home, and then copied them up himself into the enumerator summary books. So you can just imagine he's in his house, he's a Victorian, he's got his 7 or 8 kids mucking around at his feet. I mean, he's tired, he's been wandering around all day long, gathering in these forms. He could easily copy over the details wrong onto the form, especially when he's reading people's handwriting. If he thinks it says Jean or John or Jane or whatever, and he's got in a muddle and he reckons that they've put their tick in the wrong box, he could easily correct them, but correct them wrong, couldn't he? So I don't think there would be a proper, I think it's just an admin error. Yeah, on the whole.
Yeah, I think so. Now, I'll get into my last 2 questions. So if anyone watching has any questions that they'd like to ask Helen now, please put them in the comments or the question box. I don't mind. So while that's happening, so again, obviously I keep bouncing back to, the topic of getting young people into genealogy. Like, what advice would you give to people, like young people, a young person starting out?
Well, I would say for them to choose, because family history is a really big topic. Like once you've got your basic tree, it's such a big topic, which areas you might want to be in. And um, so I'm not saying you can't research all of it, but I would say choose aspects of it that you really, really love and then really go for it. So it may be that you have ancestors who come from a part of the world that you love, like maybe a different county than you, or maybe it's your local town. But choose a place which you love, and then when you get the chance to make any trips or whatever, go on like ancestor pilgrimages and go to those places. Or if you're really into cooking, then maybe research the family recipes. If you're into football and you can find that some of your ancestors played sports, so choose areas which you love in your, which really resonate with you, because that just kind of gives it another angle, and it kind of helps you be able to relate to your ancestors if you're trying to see things in their life that you enjoy it in your own life as well. So I'd say do that. I'd say make use of all the cool things like on like My Heritage is with its colouring the photos. So ask all your aunties and uncles and grannies and grandpas for the old pictures and scan them in, and you'll find them hysterical. Like looking through the old photos, it doesn't take long for an old photo to look really dated, and you think, why did I have that haircut or whatever? So yeah, dig out the old photos and ask. Like as a young genealogist, you're in such a fortunate position. So those photos, most of them are going to have no names on them. Like how many people actually put the names on the backs of the photos and things? They don't. But your mum and your granny and things, they'll be able to remember who the people are. So ask them who they are. And if they don't want you to write on the back, just take a picture with your phone and then change the file name so you've got the name of the person. So yeah, I'd say do project photo with your relatives and gather stories and label up the photos. That's never going to be a waste of time. We should all do it more. And don't just do it once, do it again, because sometimes more stories come out. The more you ask, the more you learn, don't you? Like little snippets keep coming forward. Did I answer your whole question, or did I forget part of it, Daniel?
No, I'd say that was definitely answered it. Like I don't think you went off on a tangent there. Don't worry, you're doing fine. So one question that came in was, have you acquired any? Oh, yeah. Have you acquired any heirlooms during the course of your research?
Yes, I have, but not many, because so my mum and dad are still alive, and they've got some lovely photos and things, but they've still got them, so I haven't got that. But what I have got, I could quickly get it out. Shall I get it out of my cupboard? I've got this beautiful bodice. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. I can't. It's right. Like it's too dug in the back of the cupboard. I'll have to get everything out. It'll take too long. Anyway, this is beautiful green bodice, which must be for a really tiny, tiny woman, and I think it's from about 1840, in the 1840s. And I know, but it's randomly just been kept and handed down in my family, and it used to always be kept just squashed flat, and then when I got given it, so I think it's probably like my 3 or 4 times great granny's bodice. Then I looked up on the British, what was it? No, the V&A website, and it had how to look after old fabrics. So then I've now made it this massive box, because you have to stuff it with tissue so the fabric doesn't get squashed and blah blah. So now I've made it this massive archive box, but now it means that it's really annoying and big to store, because before it used to be the little flat thing. So now I've got this horrible big box, but at least I know I'm looking after it right. Yeah,
exactly. And that's the kind of thing that you want to ensure that you do. Like like if you said it's in the 1840s, it's 180 years old.
I know.
So
yeah.
it's not exactly something that you bought out of a shop last week or something.
No.
So it is kind of something that you really do want to, preserve and keep, and it could be reviewed in the museum or something, and kind of go like, this is an example of a bodice or something from the 1840s, and people will go like, wow, how is it such in good condition? And the fact that you're taking the correct steps to preserve it is kind of like the good way to go.
Yeah. So that's pretty much, I'm going to remember other things, but that's probably my main cool thing which I've got. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, because obviously heirlooms I was on with
Oh,
on
I just remembered
Instagram
another
Live
thing
with
I've got
hers.
is a sewing machine. I've got a lovely old sewing machine, which is I can't believe I forgot to say that. So yeah, so that was my great great granny's, and she bought it just after the Second World War, and so it's like a utility design because everything, lots of things are still in rationing, and so it's kind of, you know, streamlined and quite basic. But I love it because I can just imagine her getting all excited. It's the end of the war. She's buying a new sewing machine, and hopefully times are going to be better for her and things. Yeah.
Right. And I anyway. I saw something there. No, I'm thinking of something else. So obviously, where can people find you if they want to, keep up with you? And so, like, I'd imagine Family Tree magazine and would be an ideal place to go.
Yeah. So our website is family-tree.co.uk, and then we do Instagram, obviously, and then Twitter and Facebook. Yeah, things like that. And we do a digital issue of the mag, so that's really handy if people want to read it, because then they don't have to have expensive overseas shipping. But then on the other hand, I kind of think we all spend a lot of screen time at the moment, so having an actual magazine, like being able to read a book, be able to read a magazine, be able to do things where we're not looking at the screen is kind of nice to have a change of media.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because because obviously I started reading it back in June. I'm a fairly new reader, and hopefully I may have I submitted a little thing to Dear Paul, so that may be popping up in either February or April, I think he said, or maybe the one after. I can't remember what. I had the email somewhere. And yeah, so keep an eye out for that anyway. That'll be my little 5 minutes of fame in a little magazine.
And then also, Daniel, when you organise your next family tree, when you organise your next Instagram lives, then if you let us know, you have to let us know quite far in advance, but then we can include it on diary dates, because on diary dates we have all sorts of things, like we mention conferences or podcasts or webinars, or so
Yeah.
we haven't mentioned an Instagram live yet, but you could be the first Instagram live that we mention. Yeah,
I
because
may
that,
be in touch.
yeah. You just have to let us know about 2 months in advance because of when the magazine goes to print. So if that's no problem, then do. Yeah.
Well, I'd say I'd hope there'd be a good few people. I definitely have at least another 6. I think I have series 2 planned out. I may have 7-ish, 7, 8. So I'll have to count how many I have. And I will obviously be doing other people in the genealogy community, no matter kind of if they're mainly an author, but if they dabble a little in genealogy as well, I don't mind. I'll happily do it. So I'd say I
Yeah,
probably
sounds
have
good.
enough. I'll have me work cut out for me every Saturday evening, I will be honest. Uh,
Yeah.
but if anyone has some last minute questions that they'd like to get in now, please do, because I will wrap this up fairly soon. But yeah, like I said at the start, or maybe in the first try, the second try, I can't remember now. I am not doing any Instagram live interviews the next 2 weeks. I will be restarting the interview series, or if you want to go technical, series 2, on the 9th of January. So I will, I've yet to figure out who it is, but I mean, I have 2 weeks, so I will easily figure out who fairly quickly. So hopefully. So without further ado, I will go ahead and end. So thank you, Helen, for joining in.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah.
No problem. At least you know how to join in. At least you know how to do an Instagram live now.
See, this is why one of the main reasons why we need to get young people into genealogy. Then you can teach the old people like me how to do things like this. See, it's good, isn't it? Yeah.
If you want to say it in that perspective, sure. Uh, okay, I'm gonna head in. I'm gonna head and end this now. So thanks everyone for tuning into this interview with Helen Tovey. I hope I said that right. And thank you for all genuinely. And obviously, I will be talking to you all for at least another 2 weeks on this. So thank you for all the support I've been getting with this, because obviously, like I said many a time, it started out as something small, and then I kind of go like, is it a good idea or not? And honestly, I'm glad I did, because it's definitely something that I've enjoyed doing, which I wouldn't have ever thought I would have enjoyed doing, if that makes sense. But it was great to see that so many were behind me on this. And I hope to do more of it. And yeah, so without further ado, I will end. So bye everyone, and see you in 2 weeks, 3 weeks.